Hey there guys, I am SonicGhost and welcome to another bonus episode of Let's Play Sonic Heroes. Today we're going to be taking a look at the E3 beta build of Sonic Heroes. So the ISO image of this beta build got put online not too long ago. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this beta build of Sonic Heroes and just see what's so different about the early version of Sonic Heroes compared to the final build. So right off the bat, they give you two stages you can go ahead and pick from, and they label them easy and hard. The easy stage is Seaside Hill Act 1, and then the hard stage is Rail Canyon Act 1. So both stages you play as Team Sonic, but as you can already see jumping into the game here, the entire screen itself is very different from the final build. For starters, we have a timer ticking down, so we have about 10 minutes to beat each stage. And also, when you hit the question marks, teammates don't talk to you at all. There's no real voice acting for any of the characters in this game outside of their attack line. So that's pretty much all you're going to be hearing from these characters. Another thing you're going to be noticing is that there's no level up system at all in this build. So Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles can only be in their level 1 status from the final game. So you won't be able to see Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles get any stronger than what they already are. And there's also no point system in this build either, so you're not going to be getting any scores in this mode, so don't worry about A ranks or anything like that, because in this build there were no ranks just yet. So it looks like in early development stages of Sonic Heroes, it looks like they could have dropped the ranking system altogether, which would have made the game play a little bit differently, to be honest, because then points really wouldn't have mattered and you just would be trying to go as fast as you can through stages, not really focusing on the best score or anything like that. But at the same time, that might also make you play a little more recklessly, and you might not also use the level up system that they put in the final game. So I can see why they added the score system later on for A ranks and such, just to give you an incentive to replay the levels over and over again. And it's weird to not see any level ups in the characters at all, because Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are very weak in their base forms. And without having any kind of level up system, it's really odd and just different in general, in my opinion. So I'm glad they added that later on. But another major change, as you're probably noticing, there's no Team Blast meter. So there's no Team Blast whatsoever in this build of the game, which means that you're going to be taking care of these enemies the slow way. So you're going to just be homing attacking things, punching things, or knocking enemies down from the air with Thunder Shoot, and that's pretty much all you can do. There's not going to be any kind of screen nuking attack, and there's not going to be any way to really fill up your meter, because that meter doesn't exist. So again, going out of your way to kill things just doesn't really seem to be that big of an incentive in this early build. In fact, in this build of the game, you're probably just better off ignoring most enemies, because they'll just take you longer to kill them. So I'm glad they did change up a lot of stuff for the final game. And as you can see there, the checkpoints are even different too, because when you hit a checkpoint, all it's really doing is just giving you speed shoes. Where in the final game, you were getting level ups for your character that passed through the gate. So checkpoints had more of a meaning than just dying, because speed shoes, let's be honest, in the 3D Sonic games, they never really do anything. You always get the speed shoes at the worst times, and they just don't really make you move that much faster, to be honest. So speed shoes aren't really the greatest reward from one of those checkpoints, and I'm glad they changed that, because really that's kind of a disappointing thing to get just for hitting a checkpoint. But also the sounds in this version are a little bit weird, but honestly I can kind of compare the sounds in this build of the game to other releases of Sonic Heroes, like the PS2 version or the PC version, just being a lot quieter in comparison. So I wouldn't really give the game too much crap when it comes to sound, because sound balancing was one thing every single version of the game did differently, which was kind of weird, to be honest. It was kind of weird to not see one version have like low sound and the rest be kind of equal. Now they were all different, so it was very inconsistent, to be honest. But I should also mention that in this build, the Rocket Excel also works a little bit differently, because there's no kick for Sonic anymore. So it seems like they added in the extra attack to the character's B button later on for Rocket Excel. So in Sonic's case here, like I mentioned before, he did a little kick which propelled him forward a little bit. So originally they were thinking of not doing something like that, from what I could see. And I'm glad they did add something like that, because when you don't get a Rocket Excel, you don't really move all that fast. So having something to make you go faster, it's just very nice to have. And I kind of miss having no kick in this build. It is kind of disorienting, to be honest, because I'm not used to it. But one weird thing here I noticed at the very end of Seaside Hill is if you jump down that giant wooden hole, there's nothing there. It's just a bunch of rings. They later added that area to have a boost panel at the bottom, so if you jump down, you would come right back up to the top. But that's not here in this build, and I'm glad they added that for the final build. Also, the characters just kind of do their animations still. The victory animations are still scripted in this version, but you can move the camera. You can even do first-person camera, and it's really weird. Again, glad they polished that up for the final version. So let's go ahead and do the hard stage now, which when you jump into this, you'll notice right away there's one major difference in comparison to the final build that's not just HUD related. And that's in the beginning here, we're actually starting off in the same section that Team Dark and Team Chaotic start off in. So from what I can see here, it looks like originally the teams were supposed to all go through the same paths. And I can believe that, not just from this little piece of the level we're playing right now with Team Sonic, but with Team Rose, you can find a lot of alternate gold rings in a lot of levels. If you find a way to go past the original gold ring in a level, you can find another one later on, and the team will have extra dialogue too. So that in combination with this makes me believe that we were supposed to play through every level with the same characters in the same routes. So it would mainly just be a character difference from what I can see here. It's good that they did change that, honestly, in the final version, just because of the fact that it gives the teams a little bit more variety, not to go through all the same segments. So I'm glad that was changed. But it would have been interesting to see them keep the level structure the exact same for each character, because that would have really changed the game. And oh wow, I barely stay on those rails. So one thing I noticed about this beta build is it's going to be rough around the edges. You will expect something like that in a beta build of a game. But rail switching, and even grinding on rails in general, is extremely picky in this version. Because half the time you'll be grinding up a rail, then you'll just kind of fall down. Or you'll fall off the rail and almost die. It's really, really inconsistent. So I'm glad that was polished up for the final version, because if it was left as is in this version, oh man, there'd be a lot more deaths grinding rails. Because I've actually had a lot of close calls already while playing through this beta build. And man, the rail mechanics in this one are so weird. Like that, I was not doing anything. I was not holding any direction. Sonic just kind of jumped off the rail and jumped onto another one. It was a little disorienting and very scary. Also, I'm wondering when Sonic was going to grab onto this pole. That was a little weird. I mean, you can't expect this to be perfect. This is a beta. So the game is going to have a lot of rocky edges, so to say. It's not going to be the most polished game in the world. And the final version does have a lot of flaws too. Don't get me wrong. I really do like Sonic Heroes, but the game does have issues. So I'm just glad that these issues we're seeing here didn't transfer over to the final game. But then again, you can't expect that. Beta build, I'm going to be saying that a lot probably. And it's also weird to not hear any sounds coming from these cars, because this just kind of makes this segment a little empty. So yeah, that's a little weird. But you notice how long this level is too. Even for a beta, this is a lot that someone would get to play at E3. Because this was probably put on the show floor after all the conferences were done at E3. And people got to play this probably just to try out the game and get their ideas to write articles about it. So something like this is a very, very long demo indeed. Nowadays at E3, we may just see the games come with trailers, and that's about it. So it's nice to see a lot of gameplay. Whoa, okay, that was a little weird. That happens in the final game once in a while, but that's still weird to see my characters just kind of jump. It makes you really question everything. Also, you get a lot of height from that one turbine. It's weird. Like, I feel like you get more height off that one than you do in the final game. It's really weird. I'm also not moving that fast. I think I'm going to hit a train. Oh, that train's like right on my tail. Yeah, so there is what I was talking about before. The rail mechanics in this. Whoa! Okay, let me just go ahead and just say right now, once again, rail mechanics in this version in particular are the weirdest thing in the world. Also, I kind of got shoved off the edge there. That's great. That never really happened in the actual playthrough, but Knuckles can easily just push off the side. Same for Omega, any power character to be exact. But Knuckles and Omega especially, you have problems when you're punching. But yeah, there's no real points in this version, so I don't need to worry about death. It's just no penalty, so I can just continue on like nothing happened. But that rail swapping there you've seen in my first death, that was what I was talking about before, of how the rail mechanics in this game got really, really fixed. And even though people complain about the rail swapping in the final build, you gotta admit that this is just way worse. So, at least we got something that works. In this version, I literally just went left on the rail, and what it did was it clipped me through the rail and pushed me downwards. So yeah, we at least have something working in the final build. Man, I was not expecting that at all. That really caught me off guard, especially when I'm talking about how bad rails are in this game. Of course, it's got to happen as soon as I mention it. But we're pretty much at the end of the stage now, so unless we clip through a rail again, then we're home free. So there we go. So yeah, I can move the camera here during the victory, and I can even do first person, which is really weird. It is a really, really weird thing I'm glad they fixed in the final version. It's kind of like moving the camera around in the Japanese version of Super Mario 64. It just doesn't really fit. And I can see why they fixed that for later releases. But with that said, that was the beta build of Sonic Heroes. So this is really proof of just what the game could have been originally. It could have been a thing where all teams went through the same levels and the same paths, so the gameplay wouldn't be too much different. It would just be a matter of what team will you want to pick. So I'm glad they did change that around for the final build. That way you can go ahead and choose the team you want to play as, and also which team that you want to feel the most comfortable with, since each team plays a little bit differently in terms of difficulty too. That was a nice change. And another thing is, a lot of the things that added later into the game's development, like the whole level up system, Team Blast, it's very nice to see those things added to the game just because it makes combat a lot better. When you're level 1 in this game, combat can take a very long time. So having that level up system and also Team Blast just makes things a lot more convenient, and I'm glad that was added in as well. But this is interesting just to see what could have been if the game released in this state, because games sometimes do release in these beta builds because of how tight the time limit could be on a game. We've seen that all the time. SonicGhost 6 is one of the most infamous games for that because it went back to a beta build just because it was the most finished build at the time. So imagine what would have happened if we got Sonic Heroes in this kind of build. It would have been a very different game in my opinion. But with that all said, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.